everybody. It's been a little while since we've talked. This is Matt Nokes, and going live again. I haven't seen you guys in a little while, and I just want to say hello and Happy New Year. And I know it's a little late to say Happy New Year, but I'm really hoping you guys are having a good year. This season's about to start. I know you're all in preseason and getting ready, and I've been getting a lot of questions. I've been getting a lot of questions about, trying to find the perfect swing, or just the absolute frustration of not being successful. Popping up ground balls. So I was thinking, the easiest way to develop the perfect swing is how we do it naturally when there's some utility. So let me explain. So first of all, when you hammer a nail, for example, you got the nail and you have a hammer. You know what it looks like, and you have a job to do. So you start hammering the nail. First, you don't want to bend the nail, so you start hammering the nail into the wood for some purpose that you have. And if you bend the nail, you obviously knew the direction of force was a little off, or maybe you tried to swing too hard and you got out of control, which happens when you're hitting. If you shift your weight at a certain time or at a certain pace, and then you try to swing quicker than what you're shifting, or you're shifting real fast and then your arms are too loose and they lag behind, or there's no connection, there's no synchronicity between your levers, your swing levers, and your body, your weight shift, because everything comes down to timing. Okay. Just so I use the example of hammering a nail, or a sledgehammer hitting a wedge, trying to split some wood, or an axe and just chopping down a tree. You know what you're doing. You have a job to do. Now, of course, it's pretty easy because the thing's not moving, but you know what you're doing and you know why you're doing it. If for example, I said, so I really want you to swing that hammer as hard as you can. Well, let's say all of us are on top of a roof and we're trying to fix a roof, and we're hitting the shingles onto the roof, and we're hammering nails in, and say, hey, it's getting dark, we got to do this really fast. So let's start swinging harder, get those nails in. You would know that I didn't mean swing so hard that the nail goes flying across the room or across the roof. And you would know that I didn't mean swing so hard that the nail would bend. So you get a lot of feedback from something with utility. If you have a screwdriver, you know what it looks like. It's either a flathead or a Phillips, and you got the screws. So when you have it, you know what to do. They say, any job is easy if you got the right tool, because the tool has utility. So for your coaches and parents out there, you're trying to teach your son or daughter how to hit, and or your coach, as a coach, you're trying to teach your players how to hit. And it's frustrating sometimes because you have a lot of people all at once, and there's a lot of problems, that range, that have a huge range. And one person is they're lunging, another person is they're getting blown away, another person is trying something that you've never seen before. They're trying something so unorthodox you can intuitively tell it's just not efficient. Because the goal with our mechanics is to be efficient. The goal with anything that has utility is to be efficient. So, the problem is this, is the only way that you can get a hit is you have right field line, left field line, and you have about 10 degrees to about 36 degrees in that sliver of space, but it spans the field, okay? And you think, well, that's a lot. Well, you can get some hits if you hit the ball on the ground a little bit lower, maybe even 0 degrees if you hit in the right spot, if you hit it hard enough. But primarily you want to hit it somewhere between 10 degrees and 36 degrees is where you're going to do all the damage. All right, so it's a small sliver compared to the enormity of space, of empty space around, right? There's so many things that you could do. Hit pop-ups, ground balls, fly balls, whatever. there's so many things that you can do wrong. You can hit the top of the ball, hit ground balls, or you can hit the ball hard right at somebody and do everything just right. Or your mechanics are off, but your timing is pretty good. Your mechanics are off, and you hit kind of a soft line drive at somebody, so you think you did it right. So you put that little thing in your head, like, oh, I did that right. That feel, whatever that feel was, that I'm going to try to do that again. The problem is it's not efficient. If it wasn't efficient, it's probably not going to work the next time. So that's a problem, because it all boils down to timing. Timing affects your mechanics. It takes time. Your swing has a timeline from first movement to contact. What I see players are doing all the time, instead of focusing on simply the utility of the job, drive the hammer or through the nail so the nail gets into the wood, drive the ball with a good direction of force so you know what you're doing. Not over swinging, not a lot of extra swing style. Players these days, lately, I've been seeing, are getting confused with efficient utility of your technique versus hitting style. And when you look at a major league player, they have a certain way they do things, but if it's easiest to follow their hitting style, because that's what stands out. Their technique, on the other hand, is a little bit more complicated because it's efficient, and if you don't know what efficiency is as far as a swing, if you don't know what the utility is, then you're going to have a tough time distinguishing. Otherwise, you could look at Mike Trout hit and you'd just be a great hitter, right? But that's not what happens. More often than not, people are looking on because of all this technology. People are looking on, playing, and they are trying to figure out what Mike Trout's doing or whatever their favorite hitter is doing, and they're observing something, thinking it's important when it's usually not. And so they end up creating a flaw, creating something that they focus on that takes them off the task, that takes them off the efficiency of the task. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating. I mean, young players are, you get a hit and you do everything wrong. You hit a blooper and you're happy, you're on first base. You're fighting for a job, and maybe you're hitting the ball hard every time or a lot, but you got the lowest batting average, or maybe you have the highest batting average and you're not playing. That gets frustrating. There's so many variables when you're hitting that you got to get control of it. There's a way to get control of it, and that's the major league plan. It's the big league plan. Is to understand, as coaches, if you can communicate to your players the utility of each of the moves in the swing, then they're going to be able to go find it for themselves. In other words, no one's going to shy away from something efficient. Every player searches with a million different desperate fixes. So here's what everybody does. Since we were 8 years old, we were shoved into competition before we knew what we were doing, and we were trying to learn how to swing the bat efficiently. We didn't even really know what that meant, but we're trying to swing the bat really good, I guess. And what ended up happening is that we're trying to hit the ball at the same time, and it's really hard to learn how to swing the bat efficiently and to really even know what that means while we're trying to hit a ball. And so, but what happens is about 10 years later, you're in high school. You're quicker, stronger, faster. You got to, everything's smoother, and maybe you got great exit velo, but you're still swinging, and you got all this extra stuff going on. Everything's flying. Maybe you got 100-mile-an-hour velocity, but the ball's on a tee, or it's soft toss, or it's predictable. Or have you ever been walking up and down in a batting cage? Hey, Derek, what's up, big guy? And hey, Georgie. And you're walking up and down a batting cage, the automatic kind, and you can't hit in one, you can't hit in another, and all of a sudden you find one that you can hit in. And obviously that's because whatever the tempo was that you had that day with your swing is happens to match a certain speed in the batting cages. Well, that's not going to translate in games very well. And that's what people say when they have a swing that's a cagey swing, they got a batting cage swing. Or even worse, when they get a little bit older, especially when they get into pro ball, they got a 5 o'clock swing. And a 5 o'clock, a 5 o'clock hitter, you know what that means, Derek and Georgie, you guys know what that means. Someone who can hit balls. It looks like they're hitting golf balls straightaway center home runs, but they get into the game and they're not efficient, and they don't have a good plan, and they don't have good enough timing. Their timing's okay for batting practice, and their plan is pretty simple because the coach is throwing the ball right down the middle. But they get into a situation where the pitcher's trying to make it impossible for them to hit the ball, and they start making they start making exceptions for their plan, and thinking, well, I'm gonna have to change this or that, when they don't really understand what that plan is. I'm curious if you're interested about this. I'm curious if you're what you have to think about this, about the frustration and the pain maybe your son or daughter's going through right now as you're trying to make a team, What are they talking about when they come home and sitting around the dinner table? Are they frustrated? Are they crying? I mean, I remember in my first year in pro ball, I started crying after a game. It's embarrassing to say, but I guess not. I'm human. So, but 3 years later, I was in the big leagues in a Silver Slugger. So, because I had a mentor. Frank Robinson was my mentor. And then I got to play around players. I got to see and feel what the better hitters would do. Like my great buddy, Darrell Evans, and Derek Evans, his son, is right here. What's up, bro? And I'd watch him hit, or I'd watch someone else hit who can really hit. I mean, Derek's father hit over 400 home runs. And when you watch someone that you're on the same team with, they give you, it's almost like you have permission to do certain things that your coaches were telling you maybe to stay back or to do something or load, and they get you focused on your mechanics instead of just focused on what's important. And one of the famous lines that Darrell Evans would say was, he'd give you a tip, and then he'd say, well, I can't teach you everything. Like, yeah, I can't explain everything, right? Well, I've been spending the last 25 years for that reason, to learn how to articulate and to figure out how to help people with their timing, how to help people with their efficiency and their mechanics, and how to explain the major league plan in a way where they won't compromise, because there's so many players, even in the minor leagues, who maybe number 1 round picks, and they get up and they don't go anywhere because they waver in the plan. They have all the talent in the world, but they waver. So let's go back down to amateur ball. If you're a college player, you're a high school player, you're getting ready for Little League, you're a father, you want to help your son, mother or father want to help your daughter, and you're trying to hit better. Well, if you can take things in your life that have utility, you know what that means. Why is it so easy to learn how to swing an axe in a day? Why is it so easy to learn how to use a screwdriver in 5 minutes? To use some vice grips that you've maybe never even seen, but okay, you figure it out how it works, and you loosen it up, and you find the right width, and then you clamp it down. You figure these things out because there's utility to them. Well, hitting has a utility as well. And, obviously you want to drive the ball with a directional force. and you want to be on time. Problem is if your swing is not efficient, if your swing is changing every time, if you go to stride and you land and you slow down and then you try to hit it, and then the next time you go to swing and you speed up like you're supposed to accelerate. But if you're changing what you're doing, then what happens is you don't know whether you need to change your swing or change the timing. But you know, if the solution here is if you take a consistent swing, that's where swing hard in case you hit it came from. But if you take a consistent swing and you really go for it, and what your timing truly is shifting your weight into the ball on time. No other way to explain it. If you're not getting your weight into the ball, you're quitting. If you're not getting your weight into the ball, you're slapping it, you're arm swinging it. And any professional knows that if they arm swing it, they know that's the last time it's going to happen. So just like a hammer, if you were using a hammer and you were just kind of going like that, well, you would know that's not the right way. You got to get some weight behind it. All right. So I know there's a lot of frustration when you're playing, and parents and coaches try to find things in your life that you know how to do because there's utility to it. There's a job to do and you understand what the job is, and try to bring those metaphors in as they learn how to hit. Don't just randomly say, try this, try that. If you're telling a young person to try, put your hands here, put your hands there, put your hand, change them, or move your hands back, or do something like that, they're going to be focused here and not on the ball. When instinctively in soft toss, you don't do that. You focus on the ball, and you just find a swing that works, and you just focus on the ball. Intuitively, you know what to do. But in the game, you move it back to 60 feet, and all of a sudden, everybody kind of freaks out, and all the variables of timing become unmanageable. So, it's important to realize that if you're coaching and you're saying try this, try that, players are going to listen to you for only so long. And if you're trying to force them, well, if you don't swing this way, if you don't hit this way, you're not going to be in the lineup. There's nothing worse than that. There's nothing worse than that. And for players, it crushes them because they're torn, because they know whatever you're saying, they're not getting it. And they're torn between wanting to please a coach and trying to hit the way they're talking, and it doesn't make sense to them. So, but on the other hand, if you put something in front of them that's efficient, no one shies away from efficiency. In other words, if you explain something and explain a metaphor, an example of something else that closely resembles a certain part of hitting that they need to learn, and they understand it, they're going to go access the field themselves, because ultimately they're making a million different desperate fixes all the time because they haven't learned the secret of a brutally efficient mechanics, knowing the plan so they can focus on timing. And there's timing variables that you got to figure out. So if that's the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is to understand your mechanics in a way where you have a repeatable swing. You don't got to worry about it. But it's not always easy for coaches to teach that, because players are unique and problems are not the same. I mean, every hitter has unique issues, and it's never just one thing. It's always a series of things that cascade out of control, but the solution is always simple when you find the utility of it. When you understand the utility of whatever is going wrong, and that efficiency, trust me, players will not shy away from that. You don't want to teach a player what to feel. Try this, try that. You want to give them the information so that they can access that feel themselves. Okay? So if you have any questions about this, and if you enjoyed what I said and you want to talk about it a little bit more, leave some questions in the underneath this video, and press like. If you agree with me or you liked it, press the like button. Also, sometimes I'm on Instagram, Matt Nokes Official, at Matt Nokes Official. So write that down if you need to. But this year, it's a new year. Let's get started off right. Let's make our mechanics efficient, because there's too much that goes wrong when we're hitting. Struggle. I mean, hitting is such a struggle, and we want to minimize that. And how we minimize that is to become efficient and to know the plan, and then so that we can just deal with our timing. If you'd like to know a little bit more about that, ask me questions, because look, I can sit here and talk all day about things that would go way over your head, about maybe a major league hitter or something, and maybe even this conversation, maybe it's over your head and you're thinking, I'm talking abstract, but I'm talking very specific about stuff. You have specific problems and issues. Let me know about them, and so I can answer them. I can help you out. If you give me a specific problem, it'll usually be a series of problems. Throw a video in there as well, so I can take a look at a swing. And what really helps is get in front of the dang camera, grab the bat, have the kid, young man, young woman, grab the bat and say, "This is what I'm having problems with." So, if you enjoyed this, like I said, press the like button, and also once again, Matt Nokes official with Instagram. Okay, so I will be on probably a little bit later to answer some questions, but I hope you guys have a great day. See you later. Day might be planned. Everything else is amateur hour.